On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don Davis. I'm a consultant in life sciences. I focus on helping companies manage complexity and increase performance. So today on the show, we're going to be talking to Jae Yoo. But before we focus on the interview at hand, I just wanted to mention again really quickly, my digital media marketing company called D3. We're out there really trying to help companies level up with regards to their digital media presence. So with that, let me just introduce my guest. My guest is Jae Yoo. Jae is the director at EPM Scientific. EPM Scientific exists to enable exceptional careers in the world. They connect exceptional talent with exceptional opportunities. So with that, welcome, Jae.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on your show, Don. Just wanted to start off by giving you a quick intro of my background. So I actually went to school at Penn State where I studied science, and it was a life science option, which at the time I think no one knew what that really meant, including myself. But I've always been interested in the healthcare field and wanted to find a career that can join my interest in healthcare along with my sales and entrepreneurial interests. I'm happy to have found EPM because it perfectly joins both of my passions. I started out with the business actually 7 years ago today. So we
Nice.
had a little anniversary thing, which was really cool. And I started as a market specialist recruiter, 0 years of experience in recruitment at the time, and I was an individual contributor specifically in the clinical and commercial operations space. I was the fifth hire in our EPM team back in April of 2016. And in my second year in the business, I transitioned into a leadership role where for about 3-ish years, I helped the EPM New York team scale from 10 consultants all the way to 35. And we now currently have a team of 50 consultants here in New York, and we're looking to grow to a team of 65 before the end of this year. A few things about EPM specifically, although we've only started in two verticals when I started, we've actually carved out 11 specific niche verticals in which we operate and service our clients. My current focus is overseeing EPM across the US and strategically deploying the right people in our end markets within our regional offices. We actually have uh, 5 of our EPM teams and 6 of our offices in Phaydon. And now we have 150 consultants across North America. So
Wow. So as a recruiter, what was your primary focus then versus now? What was the difference?
So when I was an individual contributor, my role was to win new clients and recruit within the clinical and commercial verticals.
Okay.
Now my role is more uh, growing specifically, strategically across the US, where we're doing it in a complementary way and making sure that we have the right models and standards in place for each of our teams.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting too to watch organizations grow over time, and the growth that you guys are talking about is not insignificant either. I mean, whenever you sort of expand your team, whenever you're a global organization of tens of thousands and you add hundreds every year, that's one thing. If you're adding thousands, that's another thing. And then yet whenever you look at an organization like EPM and what you guys are focusing on and the size of your team now versus what it will be, that's pretty significant again.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. I was actually thinking about this in my head. I think we've actually doubled in headcount like every 3 years for EPM. So definitely a lot of challenges that come with that rapid growth, but it's something that we've definitely taken head on and something that we're even still excited about.
That's great. And then what led you really to want to be in staffing, with EPM?
Yeah, so originally I had a choice to join our DSJ global brand, and just naturally just having worked at a lab in college and just having been around the life sciences sector, I just thought that the companies that we were working with and had the opportunity to partner with were so cool. Back in the day, back in 2016, I only knew one pharmaceutical company, which was Bayer, and I feel like now companies like Pfizer and Moderna are just like now a household name.
Yeah. Yeah, especially, with some of the topics that we'll get into in just a little bit. But so can you tell us a little bit more about the focus of EPM? Because I mean, I understand that they do, some level of staffing or recruiting, but with that, do you have specific focus areas? It sounds like you're expanding a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So EPM Scientific is one of six brands within Faden International, which is our holding company. And our goal is to focus on hard to fill business critical placements within our sectors. We're in 11 market verticals right now that spans all the way from drug discovery to post commercial launch. And within these market verticals, we have a lot of our sub niches as well. But our micro specialist recruiters only operate in one of these areas. So that way they can truly hone in on their network and develop that market specialization.
It's great. And I mean, there got to be some good examples of hard to fill roles. What sort of hard to fill roles, would an organization have that they might come to you for?
Oh gosh, I would say starting off, computational chemistry is a pretty big area right now, and I think a lot of the technology that's being used is very new. So comp chemists are definitely in high demand, which falls within our research and development team. Um, Pharmacology as well is also big for us, and then most importantly, we have a very big biostatistics team, which covers our statistician searches that analyze clinical trial data for our clinical biotech companies.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine that, a lot of the roles in life sciences could be deemed as, hard to fill. And,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for the examples. I greatly appreciate that. So given the shifts in staffing after the COVID epidemic, how have you had to sort of change your approach at EPM?
Oh gosh, I actually feel that the pandemic had put us on the map. Again, just referencing the fact that I don't think a lot of people knew could name even a few pharmaceutical companies at the time. But the biggest changes that I would say, and I think this is more across the recruitment industry, is the rise of fully remote work. I think this has really changed the way that our hiring managers and our clients conduct interviews. Also, with candidates who have never done virtual interviews before, I think we're able to have processes move a lot quicker. But also, at the same time, we're able to get more candidates interviewed as well. The logistics of setting up flights and everything for interviews have changed, which I think is great. So that was the biggest change recruitment wide, specific to the life sciences sector. When the pandemic actually started, I think there was a lot of, I guess, panic, so to
Mm,
say, just uncertainty. We noticed that a lot of our small to mid-sized companies at the time were not really hiring that much due to the uncertainty. So we had a very large boom with our large pharmaceutical companies. This past year, it's the opposite. We're noticing that a lot of our large pharmaceutical and biotech companies have gone on a hiring spree, so to speak, and a lot of our smaller biotech companies now are capitalizing on the growth.
mm. Yeah, I mean, it's so important to kind of think back to that time as well. I remember telling people that my general belief was, I was like, we're not going to stop having to go into the lab. I mean, come on. And then, all of a sudden we were trying to figure out, like, within 24 hours, how do we get into the lab? Because we have to still, go in and feed cell cultures and things like that. And so it was one of those moments where it was like, how do we make sure we can overcome some of these challenges? And then, sort of, fast forward to now, I've seen a lot of people that were hired during the pandemic that had never gone into the office, and all of a sudden they're getting to, for the first time experience people again face to face. So it's been a pretty nice shift to watch as well.
Yeah, and I think just slowly we're seeing that companies are introducing their workforce to come into office now, which I think is a great thing. And I think a lot of our candidate pools, I never thought I would see the day, but they want to be in the office and be a part of building their office culture. So um, I completely agree with you. I think now that we've had this work from home environment for so long, people actually do want to spend time together in a lab or in the office.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a part of me that is fully believed, long term that having people face to face, allows you to overcome problems. But the way that a lot of these office cycles work, though, too, you see teams that go into the offices now at different cycles, and so you may not run into a contiguous group of people, on the same day of being in the office either. It's another sort of scenario that I've noticed is that people or companies, seem to fragment their people as well based on groups.
Yeah, and I think just with life sciences in general, because everything is so team heavy, I just think that especially roles where you have to work cross functionally, I just think the job is so much harder, especially having meetings virtually versus in the office. And it's been pretty cool seeing that transition where candidates want to go back to the hubs.
Yeah,
They want to move back into the major research areas.
yeah, I completely agree. So, what are some of the most significant challenges that you face at EPM?
It goes what you mentioned about how quickly we've grown, I think, when we started to where we are now, one thing that we're always mindful of is just not diluting the quality of service that we provide to our clients. And I think rapid growth, it's always a concern. We want to make sure that we're always still providing the best quality of service, to our clients being a global business as well and how quickly we've just grown, just making sure that we're on the same page, communicating and remaining consistent across our regions is I would say is our biggest challenge.
Yeah, the global piece definitely rings a bell for me because I've helped, several organizations either sort of refocus efforts globally or, even helped with their first expansion globally. And in both of those instances, there's a lot to learn whenever you go to different cultures and you're working with different teams. I could only imagine that that challenge probably goes up even more exponentially on your side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where if we can focus on just the growth of one office, I think it would make things a lot easier. But growing, I guess, five offices in the US at the same time, being on the same page and doing things all uniform is definitely a challenge, but does keep things interesting, to be fair. So
Yeah.
we do have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then where do you see the biggest opportunities?
So I think right now, the life sciences sector, even post pandemic, I think there's still a lot of opportunities on the agency side. So there's not many life science recruitment partners that can work with clients from drug discovery to post commercial launch. There's a lot of boutique and fragmented, recruitment shops. Um, but where we have our opportunity is to be able to work with a company that maybe just secured their seed funding, that's
Mm,
maybe in stealth mode, and work with them all the way through the clinic, getting their clinical trials in order and up to the point where they're able to get their drug to the market. So that's where I see us having uh, an opportunity to work with more companies like this. Also, working with more top pharmaceutical companies that are always hiring, that regardless of if there's a recession or not, remain stable is also a very good thing.
yeah, and I mean, I would imagine, kind of the variety in that is a bit of an overall opportunity as well that, you can look at the sort of phase shifts that you have to make to be able to work with startups versus, larger companies that are definitely, a bit different to work with, at least from the consulting side. I wouldn't know much about this world of recruiting and staffing. But yeah.
Yeah, and even with large companies, how they're structured is they're so siloed between their departments that when we do work with a large company, it's almost as if we're working with like seven companies at the same time. So that keeps things also very interesting, and just the opportunity to help streamline their processes is something that we take a lot of pride in.
And one question that keeps coming to mind for me is, so you mentioned that you definitely are an agency for bench scientists and people like that, but also do you focus on like the middle tier and executive level position? Well,
Yeah, absolutely. We focus on bench scientists all the way to sea level.
okay.
Um, and I think we have a very good track record working with our clients at all levels. The sea level is a different world, but we do have a different approach when we target those types of positions.
Okay. Very good. So Jay, there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Yeah, I just like doing things that are challenging and building new things. I think just seeing where our business is now and where we're headed just a few years down the way, it really gets me motivated and up early in the morning, just seeing how far we've come just a few years ago, and just challenging the status quo and what we've done in the past and setting new standards is something that really gets me excited.
Excellent. And what concerns you?
Just being able to scale our business consistently, like we have been doing, and just keeping the same standards that we had when we were just a team of 10 back in 2017. It's kind of that age old question of we want to keep expanding, but we don't want to do it at the cost of quality. And that's something that I am very mindful of and want to make sure that it's always quality first.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think a challenge for a lot of organizations that go through scaling challenges in general, right? I mean, making sure that you have people that clearly understand what their roles are, people that understand also how they're impacted by the fact that more people all of a sudden are there to do different things, is something that I would say is a challenge pretty much for every organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. I don't like to I guess compare to McDonald's, but like that's kind of what it is, right? We want to make sure the supply chain is there. We want to make sure everything is the same regardless of which McDonald's you go to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, there's something to be said for standards. I mean, you can have standards that are still flexible enough to accept the differences that you may have in an office, right? You oftentimes run into these things inside of companies. The company culture locally, all of a sudden will establish exactly how people should, kind of interact with people or how people should reward people and things like that. I mean, oftentimes you do run into those, but at the same time, as the organization gets larger and larger, eventually you have to standardize more and more, and it kind of forces you into that, I guess, that the thought process of McDonald.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What excites you?
Yeah, just we were kind of touching upon it, but just honestly, just growth. I think that we're on our way to being recognized as one of the best life sciences recruitment companies in the world, and just getting to a point where we can work with more top 20 biopharmaceutical companies, and even just working with more venture capital companies and academic institutions that are innovating life-threatening therapies, just really, really gets me excited. I think recruitment is overall interesting because you are affecting somebody's career, but ultimately, when you can also help them discover things that are going to help people overall, I just don't know many people that won't be excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, for sure. So I have just a couple more questions related to some of your comments there. So, if somebody were on let's say they're working for somebody currently and they're interested in opportunities, do they come to you, or do you normally reach out and find the people that you bring to the organizations that are currently looking? How does that work?
It's a combination of both. We're always networking with candidates in terms of what they're looking for. So our team does a really good job of speaking with candidates that are actively looking, but the majority of the people that we work with, they're not looking. At least they don't think that they're looking until they hear their dream job.
And I think that's important as well, because I know that I've had a lot of conversations with other people that sort of do focus on staffing, and they said that, one of the more challenging things to manage is just all of the people that are constantly reaching out, just wanting to, them to help them find their next job, which is fine. But at the same time, it's not really how it works. It's normally the other way around, that they're normally, you're trying to find the highest quality possible candidate, and that may require you peeling somebody out of something that they're currently doing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I will say that we try to give career advice just at every stage. I think the first step is if someone makes the effort to reach out, we want to give them the same effort back. And these candidates that we're working with now that might be entry level, they are going to be our best candidates and hiring managers in the future. And that's kind of the mentality that we have when any candidate reaches out to us.
So important. The second question that came to mind for me was, when somebody has a critical role that they're trying to find, and they want to work with you, how does that normally happen?
Yeah, so we would understand what they're looking for first and foremost, and what timelines that they're looking to make the hire by. What a lot of hiring managers forget is that there is a notice period typically because people are actively working. So although the most common answer we get is we want this person started tomorrow, we design a search where we set realistic expectations. If the interview process, right, is going to take a week, right, and then we have a 2 week notice period, and then we need another week to do background checks. Setting the expectation that it's going to take at least a month to get this person through the door if we started booking interviews today. But we would take a detailed uh, job order with a experienced team lead that would be able to design a search specifically for the needs of the hiring manager.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. And then, yeah, I will have links to EPM Scientific in the show notes as well, so that people can reach out to you on either side, so that they can reach out and find out more.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Don.
That's great. And thank you, Jae Yoo, for being on the Life Science Success podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here.
Likewise.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.